8 conspiracy theories that the mainstream media has been forced to admit are actually true. Michael Snyder reports, the mainstream media is in the habit of labeling something a conspiracy theory whenever they're tempted to discredit a particular point of view. Of course, such conspiracy theories have been proven to actually be true time after time. Meanwhile, the mainstream media has been caught in lie after lie in recent years, and as a result, trust in the media is the lowest that it has ever been in the entire history of our country. At this point, most people realize that our largest media outlets are going to push the agenda of the globalists that own them, and they're going to be extremely hesitant to expose the big companies and other giant corporations spend billions of dollars to advertise on their networks. The good news is that we've entered a period of time when the truth is coming out about so many things. The American people are now demanding transparency, accountability from major institutions throughout our society, and that's a wonderful thing. It's especially gratifying to see mainstream media publicly admit mistakes they've made. And the following are 8 conspiracy theories that mainstream media has been forced to admit are actually true. Number 1, the lab leak theory. For years, we're told that the lab leak theory was just disinformation. Of course, now it's come out that certain individuals in very prominent positions waged a relentless campaign to discredit it. They were desperate to keep a lid on what really happened, but now the truth has come out. In fact, at this point, even the CIA is publicly admitting that it is more likely than not that the lab leak theory is accurate. The CIA has shifted its stance about the origin of the virus that caused COVID-19, NBC News reported on Saturday. The intelligence agency now believes that the coronavirus escaped from a Chinese lab, a shift from its previous stance, in which it did not take a position. CIA assesses with low confidence that a research-related origin of COVID-19 pandemic is more likely than a natural origin based on the available body of reporting, a CIA spokesperson said in a statement to NBC News. Number 2, MKUltra. For decades, anyone that went on the air and talked about MKUltra was considered to be a nut, but now hundreds of government documents prove that the CIA mind control program really did exist. Newly compiled records are spilling the beans on one of CIA's most notorious and shadowy programs, MKUltra, a wide attempt to develop mind control techniques through drugs, hypnosis, and psychological manipulation. The collection was published by the Digital National Security Archive of the George Washington University in December 2024, detailing more than 1,200 documents on the CIA's foray into behavioral and mind control experiments from 1953 until the 1970s. Much of the information comes from records gathered by John Marks, a former State Department official who initiated the first Freedom of Information Act requests on the topic and authored the 1979 book, The Search for the Manchurian Candidate. We're actually very fortunate that these documents still exist, because in 1973, the director of the CIA specifically ordered that all records related to MKUltra must be destroyed. In 1973, the director of the CIA, Richard Helms, ordered that all documents related to MKUltra be destroyed. However, a cache documents was discovered following a Freedom of Information request in 1977, which led to Senate hearings, and MKUltra was declassified in 2001. Number 3, fluoride in our drinking water is bad. For ages, authorities insisted that putting fluoride in our drinking water was good for us, but now a federal judge has ruled that there is evidence that fluoride in the water could harm the intellectual development of our children. The following comes from CNN. A federal judge has ordered the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency to further regulate fluoride in drinking water because high levels could pose a risk to the intellectual development of children. U.S. District Judge Edward Chen cautioned that it's not certain that the amount of fluoride typically added to water is causing lower IQ in kids, but he concluded that mounting research points to an unreasonable risk that it could be, and he ordered the EPA to take steps to lower that risk, but did not say what those measures should be. Number 4, there are cancer-causing chemicals in our drinking water. Over the past several years, the mainstream media has actually begun reporting on all of the nasty things that are showing up in the water that is coming up out of our taps. In fact, a study that was conducted in 2019 actually found 22 separate carcinogens in our drinking water. Increased cancer risks were linked to 22 carcinogens found in the drinking water. Contaminants include arsenic, radioactive materials such as uranium and radium, and disinfectant byproducts, which are substances produced when chlorine and other additives are used in the treatment process. Systems that rely on groundwater sources such as aquifers have higher concentrations of arsenic and radioactive materials and contribute to the higher risk of cancer. Systems that rely on surface water sources such as reservoirs have a lower risk but serve larger populations. Water systems where droughts are more common may pose a higher risk, in part because drier conditions create an environment where contaminants become concentrated as water levels are reduced. Number 5, the dumbing down of America. For a lot of years, many of us in the alternative media have been talking about this dumbing down of America, but the mainstream media has continued to defend our system of education. Unfortunately, it's become exceedingly clear that our kids are not all right. The following comes from the Wall Street Journal. The reading skills of American students are deteriorating further, according to new national test scores that show no improvement in the year-long slide. The 67% of 8th graders who scored at a basic or better reading level in 2024 was the lowest share since testing began in 1992. Results from a closely watched federal exam show only 60% of 4th graders hit that benchmark, nearing record lows. The decline started before the pandemic, continuing during it, and have persisted since. Number 6, prescription drugs kill large numbers of Americans every single year. For decades, alternative health practitioners and conspiracy theorists have been asserting that negative reactions to prescription drugs are one of the leading causes of death in the United States. Thankfully, the mainstream media has been forced to admit this as well. The following comes from a Vanity Fair article entitled "Deadly Medicine." Prescription drugs kill some 200,000 Americans every year. Will that number go up now that most clinical trials are conducted overseas on sick Russians, homeless Poles, and slum-dwelling Chinese, in places where regulation is virtually non-existent, the FDA does not reach, and mistakes can end up in paupers' graves. Number 7, aspartame is not good for our health. Many of us have been warning about aspartame for ages, but the mainstream media just kept defending it. Well, after reviewing the evidence, in International Agency for Research on Cancer was forced to classify aspartame as possibly carcinogenic to humans. Assessments of the health impacts of a non-sugar sweetener, aspartame, are released today by the International Agency for Research on Cancer, IARC, and the World Health Organization, WHO, and the Food and Agriculture Organization, FAO, Joint Expert Committee on Food Additives, JECFA. Citing limited evidence for carcinogenicity in humans, IARC classified aspartame as possibly carcinogenic to humans. IARC Group 2B and JECFA reaffirmed the acceptable daily intake of 40 milligrams per kilogram body weight. Number 8, Operation Paperclip. Did you know that hundreds of Nazi scientists were smuggled out of Germany and brought to the United States in the aftermath of World War II? And did you know that many of those scientists were used to help develop America's arsenal of rockets and other biological and chemical weapons? As World War II was entering its final stages, American and British organizations teamed up to scour occupied Germany for as much military, scientific, and technological development research as they could uncover. Trailing behind Allied combat troops, groups such as Combined Intelligence Objectives Subcommittee, CIOS, began confiscating war-related documents and materials and interrogating scientists as German research facilities were seized by Allied forces. One enlightened discovery recovered from a toilet at Bonn University was the Ossenberg List, a catalog of scientists and engineers that had been put to work for the Third Reich. In a covert affair, originally dubbed Operation Overcast but later renamed Operation Paperclip, roughly 1,600 of these German scientists, along with their families, were brought to the United States to work on America's behalf during the Cold War. The program was run by the newly formed Joint Intelligence Objectives Agency, JIOA, whose goal was to harness German intellectual resources to help develop America's arsenal of rockets and other biochemical and chemical weapons, and to ensure such coveted information did not fall in the hands of the Soviet Union. I could list many other examples, but I think that you probably get my point by now. Just because something is labeled a conspiracy theory does not mean that you can automatically dismiss it. In fact, many of those that love to accuse others of spreading disinformation are some of the biggest liars of all. And in this day and age, it's so important to think for yourself, and it's so important to know why you believe what you believe. Let me give you a piece of advice that really helped me. Question everything. Hold on to what's true and discard what is false. We live at a time when deception is running rampant, and it's getting worse with each passing day. This is by Michael Snyder on End of the American Dream. Please leave your comments, and thank you for your support. This is by Michael Snyder, and about the author. Michael Snyder's new book entitled Why is available on paperback and for Kindle on Amazon. He's also written 8 other books that are available on Amazon, including Chaos, End Times, 70 Apocalypse, Lost Prophecies of the Future of America, The Beginning of the End, and Living a Life That Really Matters. When you purchase any of Michael's books, you help to support the work that he's doing. You can also get his articles by email as soon as he publishes them by subscribing to his Substack newsletter. Michael has published thousands of articles on the Economic Collapse blog, End of the American Dream, and the Most Important News, and he's always freely and happily allowed others to republish those articles on their own websites. These are such troubled times and people need hope. John 3:16 tells us about the hope that God has given us through Jesus Christ. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish but have everlasting life. If you have not already done so, we strongly urge you to invite Jesus Christ to be your Lord and Savior today. Please support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support, and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.